So Darwin, when he first wrote his Origin of Species, a year before that he wrote The Descent of Man. Descent is another word for evolution, the act of passing from a higher to a lower place by any form or motion. So he's talking about de-evolving man into something that is less than man, exactly what we're talking about. Then he wrote his Origin of Species, and of course before that you had the unfolding of man, which was Jonas Salk's book, which he wrote before he wrote Infectious Molecules and Human Disease. He wrote a book called Man Unfolding, right? Which again is another word for evolution. All right, this is Salk's the guy that makes the polio vaccine. So what happened with the polio vaccine? Well, as soon as polio vaccines started being pushed, that's when people started getting all the 90% of polio cases were vaccine related, right? So that again, you're talking about a forced form of evolution. Your body is trying to cope with a foreign invasion. So the question then becomes, and we'll go to Patrick. The question becomes, if my protein structure, my prion structure, and just about everything else in my body is designed specifically to be in the quote-unquote human form, and anything that gets in my body causes an infection, causes an evolutionary process, well then how is it, and the only way to do that really is unnaturally through inoculation, through vaccination or some other form, xenotransplantation, whatever. It just doesn't happen in nature. So you tell me then, what is natural about evolution? There's, I'll give you one more example before we go to Patrick. There's a guy, you can go to iceagenow.info. This guy keeps track of, he's convinced there's an ice age coming, but he wrote a book. His first book was Magnetic Reversals and Evolutionary Leaps, right? And he starts out by saying, during most of my 50 years, I accepted the idea of evolution almost unquestionably. As a logical fallacy, it makes perfect sense. Well, of course things evolved. It only makes sense. Well, no, it doesn't. There's absolutely no concrete evidence. There's nothing that shows evolution is natural, right? Nothing. It's all, well, we could have had a species 15 million years ago that did this, and then the hyena laughed his way all the way and he became a whale, right? That gets, after a while, you're like, a dog became a whale. Okay. But he goes on to say that the only time evolution actually happens, he says, I learned that entirely new kinds of plants and animals just appeared in the geologic record almost immediately after certain extinction periods, time after time and after time. The new plants and animals had arrived as if they came out of nowhere, with no known ancestors, with no intermediate life forms to explain their sudden presence. And when you do a little bit of research, that's what you find, is you find that almost overnight you have a new species. Overnight, it seems, in the historical record, which of course we're always wary of, you find that there's a recording of a new species, right? It's not something that says, oh, look at there. There's the old species, and it's slowly evolving. No, it's a sudden appearance of something. It just happens just instantly, right? So my theory is that prions, specifically, prove that natural evolution cannot happen because our very bodies are designed to protect against the invasion of other species, and that the fact that we are being purposefully, scientifically, if you want to call it that, evolved, is probably the greatest fucking conspiracy I can possibly imagine against life itself, to actually evolve a species purposefully through inoculation. That is my going theory.